Let's turn now to Congressman Khanna, a member of the Progressive Caucus. We were also going to talk with moderate Senator Mark Warner, but he had to cancel at the last moment. Congressman, welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
President Biden and congressional Democratic leaders are talking about passing both the infrastructure package and the big tax and spend package this week. How likely is that you can get deals and pass both of them before we do this show next Sunday?
Chris, it's likely. You can hold me to it, I guess. Here's the thing. The president looked us in the eye and he said, I need this before I go represent the United States in Glasgow. American prestige is on the line. Many members understand that. We're working very hard to get a deal. I understand we're close, and I'm confident we're going to get there.
Let me ask you, though, about that, because some Democrats are talking about passing the big bipartisan infrastructure package, $1.2 trillion, even if the even bigger reconciliation package isn't done this week, in order to give President Biden something to talk about at the climate summit in Glasgow, and also to help Terry McAuliffe in his governor's race a week from Tuesday. Would you, as a progressive, because you've said in the past you don't get one without the other, would you approve the infrastructure package with this deadline, even if you don't have a reconciliation agreement?
No, and the president doesn't want that. The president needs the reconciliation agreement to go to Glasgow. That's what is going to deal with climate change. That's what's going to hit his goals of 50% reduction by 2030. I'm confident we will have an agreement. I'm confident that the president will be able to give his word to the House caucus that he has that agreement, and that would then facilitate the vote on the infrastructure bill.
Now, Speaker Pelosi was on another Sunday talk show this morning, and she said, well, we may not have a deal on the reconciliation part, the big tax and spend part, but we would have the framework. Would that be enough for you?
Well, the details matter. My view is that the president's word saying, I have the commitment of 50 senators, and those 50 senators are going to vote for this bill, and here is are the details, that's good enough. But look, different members have different issues about what is exactly good enough. I don't think proceduralism will hold this back. If the president gives his word and has a clear commitment, that will be good enough.
Now, the big development this week has not been on the spending side, it's been on the taxing side, the pay-for side, and the sudden shift away from the way the Democrats have been talking for months, if not years, on how they would pay for this big package. For months, the president has been clear about how he wants to do it. Take a look at him.
It's time for corporate America and the wealthiest 1% of Americans to just begin to pay their fair share. Just their fair share.
But now, because Kyrsten Sinema says that she opposes raising rates on wealthy Americans, those making more than $400,000, and on corporations, there is suddenly talk of a wealth tax on about 700 billionaires. Are you willing to vote for that without any real testing or vetting?
I do think a wealth tax makes sense, Chris, and as I mentioned, I think last time I was on, it would be paid largely by people in my district, Silicon Valley billionaires. Our wealth has gone up 40% during the pandemic, $11 trillion of market cap in our area. They can afford to pay a wealth tax. But I guess my question for Senator Sinema is, she voted against the Trump tax cuts, and I just don't understand why she's not willing then to raise some of the rates back to what they were before the bill she voted against was, and she hasn't explained it to anyone.
So let's be clear here, because you say, well, if the president gives you his word, that's good enough. If the president's word is, we're not going to raise rates on people making more than $400,000 a year, we're not going to raise the average corporate tax rate, let's say from 21% to 25%, instead we're going to have this billionaire's tax. And just to explain it, instead of paying some kind of an income tax, if a billionaire has assets and hasn't sold any of them, you're still going to pay a capital gains on what the increase has been in the value of the assets, which is a little easier when it's stocks. It gets pretty hard if it's real estate or a fancy painting. If he says that it's going to be the billionaire's tax but not raising rates on individuals or corporations, do you vote for that or against it?
I would vote for it. I mean, the billionaire's tax is actually a wealth tax. It's more progressive, arguably. It's what Senator Warren ran on. But the billionaire's tax, I don't think will be enough. It would have to be coupled with this minimum tax, which the president has talked about, that there are about 50 corporations that are paying 0% in taxes, and they would have to pay at least 7% in tax. So Amazon would have to pay 7%. If you had both of those and you raised the revenue, I would vote for it.
Even though you're not going to raise rates on corporations and on the wealthy as opposed to the super wealthy?
Well, I would prefer that we raise the corporate tax rates, but if we can raise the revenue in these two other ways, I'm not going to vote against the bill if we can get the revenue through alternative means, especially when I believe a wealth tax and a corporate minimum tax are also good measures. And we still have the option then of raising the corporate tax later to get free community college or other areas where we want to have meaningful change. On
the spending side, as David Spunt made clear, the president and Democrats are coming down sharply from $3.5 trillion to somewhere closer to $2 trillion tops. And I want to put up some of the programs that could either be cut back or eliminated. Letting Medicare negotiate lower drug prices, expanding Medicare to cover vision, hearing, and dental costs. Paid leave cut from 12 weeks, as it was proposed, to 4 weeks, scrapping the clean electricity program. Here's White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki.
Compromise is not a dirty word, and that we will get nothing if we do not have 50 votes. The alternative is not a larger package. The alternative is nothing.
Can you accept that, Congressman, that you may have to leave a lot of things on your wish list on the sidelines, but it's better than nothing?
I agree with Jen Psaki that compromise is good. I also agree with you, Chris, that she's done a phenomenal job in conveying the president's message. But yes, we have to get a compromise. We have to get a deal. And here's the reality, Chris. If 50 senators agree with it, if you can get Senator Manchin and Senator Sanders to agree on something, I don't think you're going to have the House vote against it. So if the president represents that 50 senators are on board with the framework, he'll have the House. Now, if there's a holdout, if progressive senators are opposed to it, then there's a problem.
Finally, and you got about 30 seconds here, how frustrated are you with Senators Manchin and Sinema?
Chris, I mentioned earlier, Senator Manchin has been a straight shooter. You know exactly where he stands. I disagree with areas, but I respect that. My concern with Senator Sinema is, why are the rules different for her? Why doesn't she go on shows like yours? Why doesn't she explain herself? If she's shifted her position on Trump tax cuts, explain it. I guess I've never seen a politician, including, frankly, the former President Trump, who just totally ducks answering questions of the media or constituents. And that's my frustration with her. She's not clear about what she believes.
Well, I got to tell you, I'm a little frustrated. We've been trying to get her on the air. She won't even meet with us in private. Congressman Khanna, thank you. Thanks for joining us. We'll be tracking how negotiations go this week on both ends of Pennsylvania Avenue.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.